Again, the strangest trick that works for 2-year-olds and adults. Welcome, everybody, to our AmpEquity speaker series, our last of this academic year, and our best, of course. Very excited to introduce Nancy Green, who is the president and CEO of Athleta, although we'll talk about Athleta is still going to be Athleta.
Yeah.
We'll talk. It's been an interesting Gap Inc. year. But I'll let her.
Has been?
Is always. Is. It is a very, thank you, which feeds right into how I introduced Nancy. It is a very interesting time in Gap Inc. and Athleta's history. And I'll let Nancy talk a little bit about that just to contextualize things right now because I still can't wrap my head around it. But here's what I know about Nancy. Nancy is the CEO and president of Athleta. Yes, yes. Although it's totally fitting Nancy, she's like, that shirt's ancient. I'm like, yeah, I got it off the sale rack last month. Thank you for that. And if you haven't been to the Emeryville Athleta store, it's such a wonderful experience. Every time my daughter loves to go in there and just hang out. She's off Lululemon, which is a big feat, and I'm super happy. And the saleswoman, Tiffany, there is phenomenal. So if you go in, ask for Tiffany. She pointed me to this in the sales rack.
We're opening on 4th Street soon.
Oh, you are? Mm-hmm. So now, even closer. Nancy is also on our Center for Equity, Gender, and Leadership board, and she's been an incredibly instrumental board membership. She's been an incredibly instrumental and important member as well as a personal mentor to me. So forget the formal, bio stuff. She'll tell you more about her. She is an expert at leading high-growth teams. In fact, it should be pointed out that Old Navy, which has been pulled in, is now its own stand-alone company, and Athleta have been and are the 2 fastest-growing brands in the Gap Inc. portfolio, and they both happen to be run by women. Imagine. So Nancy has been an incredible mentor to me, and it's I have a couple of funny stories they aren't in my notes. Typical Kelly. They give me notes and then I immediately scrap them. But I presented to the Gap Foundation board on which Nancy sits to get support from Gap Inc. for the Center for Equity, Gender, and Leadership. And as you know, Gap Inc. is our first core corporate funder and founder and partner. And later, Nancy gave me some feedback on my presentation. I was not at my best at all, and she gave me some really great constructive feedback on my presentation. And then the next 3 times I saw Nancy, I proceeded to continue to bring up and apologize for what I did wrong during my presentation. And she finally said, the only way to amplify criticism and make it more critical is to bring it up every time you see me. So stop bringing it up. And I just learned a lot because I am super sensitive to criticism and it spins. And that was just really powerful for her to tell me that. She also told us that the old name of our center sucked. That was powerful. It was the Center for Gender, Equity, and Leadership, and no center around equity or women should have the word gel in it ever. So that was powerful. And the last thing she told us was that our brand stunk. So we now have undoubtedly a far better brand down in the corner. And all of the things that Nancy tells me are like pieces of gold and wisdom, and I really have more ever than I've shared with her. I'm so appreciative to her, both as a board member, a role model as a CEO, a female CEO and president, but also just as a personal board member of mine. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Nancy.
Thank you. 2 other things. I'm a Cal graduate, undergraduate, not Haas graduate, 1983, and I got married on the Berkeley campus right over here in 1985. So Francesca was so sweet today. She's like, welcome home. And the coolest thing about arriving exactly at 12 was hearing the Campanile bells. So it's so fun to be back on campus.
And is your husband here?
He could not make it.
He was going to make it.
He will yes, he was going to try to make it. We were going to do a little walk over to the Women's Faculty Club where we got married.
Oh.
He'll check out the video.
He can find it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, that was my first question. Can you talk about your time here at Berkeley, and what are some things you learned while you were here that you took away?
Yeah, I mean, these were some of the best years of that chapter of my life. I mean, I felt when I arrived at Berkeley, and I never had really seen the campus before I arrived. I grew up in New Hampshire. So it was a long way away. And I grew up in a very, very small college town. And I really wanted to just be very far away from that in a much bigger place that was close to a city. So when I arrived at Berkeley, I felt like I just found my people. You know, when you just, sometimes you guys probably have all experienced that. Sometimes where you grow up, it's a great place, but they're not all your people. And so I loved, back then, you know, this was in the early 80s, like right after the 70s, there were some, we were, you know, it was just, it was an anything possible environment. Mm-hmm. And I know it still is, you know, and that's why I love Berkeley. It's always been this hotbed of progressive thinking, incredible diversity, and highly inclusive environment. And it was fun, it was challenging. I met some of the best friends. And I loved it so much that, you know, when we decided to get married out here, this was what represented home to me. So, you know, choosing to get married here is kind of a big deal. So, and it's incredibly fun to be now reconnected through the center. And, you know, who could be more inspired by Kellie and what she's leading here? And it's something that we're really passionate about at Gap Inc. And I personally have devoted so much of my career towards women's leadership and equity, and you know, developing really strong leaders, male and female.
When do you think that started? Your personal commitment?
You know, I was a very unusual person. So, you know, I graduated here in 1983, and I started at Gap in 1986. And I was very fortunate that Gap Inc. always had this equal pay. And, you know, Kellie did a big study on Gap several years ago that validated the fact that we'd always had this equal pay culture and equal opportunity in the company. But what was very different back then when I started, and keep in mind, so we're a $16 billion company today. Back when I started, we were $500 million. So kind of a small company relative to where we are. But I was one of the very few, while there were a lot of women that worked there, I had kids early, and there really weren't any women that had kids. And I remember, you know, that time feeling like I won't be able to do this because there are no women that are having children and having big careers here. And there was one woman that had kids. She had one child at the time. And when I called her to say I need advice on how to resign, I was on maternity leave, and she said, "What? What do you mean you're going to resign?" I said, "I can't do it. I can't travel all over the world and raise a family and have this career. Nobody's doing it." She said, "Well, I'm doing it." I said, "You're one person out of 100. She said, "Nancy, if I can do it, you can do it." And we have to be the role models for the next generation. And I'm looking over here. We have a few of you, you wonderful people who are here from Gap. But you know now that back then it was like I was one of two people. And now we have hundreds and thousands of women that are raising families and having great careers. So for me, once I realized I could do it and that I was very successful and I had the support I needed, I always had the support at the company, I made it my personal mission to mentor other women and encourage them to stay in the game, not to leave their careers and not to think that it was an either-or situation, that it really could be brought together. And because fulfillment and thriving in your life is really important, I think, for people to feel joy. And you need to feel that as much in your career as you do in your personal life, because they're very intermixed. So anyway, that's when I noticed it, and I spent a lot of time doing it with others, mentoring others.
And now, so what do you say now if somebody comes to you and says, I'm going to leave?
Well, I ask them why, because I think it's important to know why. And I think, what I try to do is encourage people to think about getting the right support system, because that's what you have to have the right support system to be able to do both. You have to have the right childcare set up, whatever that is, whatever your situation is. But you have to believe that you can do it, and you have to have that commitment with the people that you're working with. What are those, what are the agreements in terms of your schedule? And you have to give it a shot. But it's really important also that leaders create that environment that supports women in being able to do both.
Have you ever had a male employee come and say he was leaving because of family or career, kids?
No, never had a male employee leave. But what it's super exciting is now to see that we have this parental bonding leave, which supports men and women. You know, whether you're adopting a child or you've had a child. I think it's really important for both fathers and mothers, both parents, to be able to be supported in having families, because it's different today. You know, you have a lot more. My husband decided over the years to step back from his career and have more flexibility to support, me and my crazy, traveling all over the world. We have 4 children. And so you see that, I think, more often now, that there's sort of that balance in who plays what role. And so you do need to support both men and women, both parents.
And I don't even know why I have this.
Put it down. We know each other.
No. What changes, both for men and women, and gender non-binary individuals, what changes have you seen? What are some of the most stark changes you've seen over the arc of your career around equity?
Yeah, I think it's creating the conditions for everyone to be successful and not pigeonholing or assuming that somebody is a certain way just because. Whatever that issue is, I think I've seen a tremendous amount of openness to all types of equity situations. And it's really important. I mean, we're going through a lot of unconscious bias training right now in our company, which I think is super important. Especially just little things, that people have to be really aware of, right now. Or, how do people view themselves? How do they want to be viewed? What you said, gender fluidity. It's not just male and female. There's so many different aspects of equity and inclusion that have to be really thoughtfully considered. And, what one person might accidentally say might make somebody feel left out. And that, to me, is sort of the biggest conscious awareness that I've seen change in the last several years.
And as a leader, and equity fluent leaders who are going to be, raise your hands, how many are graduating in about a week or 2? Okay, so we're unleashing a good amount of equity fluent leaders into the world. What do you think is the most important thing a leader can do to advance equity, or maybe 1 or 2 things? Let me ask it in 2 parts. They're not going to. Anybody here going to be a president and CEO when you graduate next week? Okay, so I'm going to assume at this level when they graduate, and then when you become presidents and CEOs, which for Haas students will be about 2 years after they graduate. But so at both levels, what are 1 or 2 of the most important things they can do?
To advance equity?
Yeah.
Fluency?
From a new leader up to leader.
Well, first of all, it's amazing that you're part of this program. And I have learned so much by just even, my participation in the program. I would say the first thing is you're entering now, you're going back. Some of you are, you're working while you're going to school here. Some of you have taken time off just to study here. When you go back into your full-time roles, bring everything that you have learned and share what you're learning here about equity fluency, because it has to be shared. And I think you have to, if you see a situation where it's like, maybe you don't realize that it's not sort of the right way to talk about. I'm super vulnerable about it. I'm so not perfect at all, in sometimes how I speak about things. Like subconsciously, I'll just say, okay, hey guys, how you doing? And it's a room full of women. It's just, you get so used to saying that, you have to consciously say, hey y'all, I'm trying to figure out hey y'all, I'm turning into like the Southerner, right? Yeah. But little things like that, it's okay to point them out. Not everybody goes through conscious bias training, so I would say bring everything you are learning here and share it and model it. And it's okay to tap somebody on the shoulder and say, hey.
Yeah.
I think that's simple, but that's what you have to do.
It's funny, to that point, I just taught my last equity fluent leadership class to the undergrads, and they had to stand up and make a commitment. And Sophie stood up and said she was going to stop saying, hey, you guys. And so then we had this discussion about, well, now what do you say?
Hey, y'all.
And I'm from the South, so I can say, hey, y'all, but then I learned that when a woman speaks in a Southern voice, her perception of her IQ goes down, so it's all very confusing. But the thing that Sophie said that was fascinating to me is now some people think when you say, hey, y'all, it's evoking, you know, the antebellum South, which was a very oppressive time. And it's sort of like, just don't say anything. Just,
Hey.
I know. Hey. I don't know what to say. It's like, it's getting really complicated. It's a tricky time. In terms of the grand poobet.
But you also can't walk around being like afraid, like, oh my God, suddenly you shut down all communication because you don't know how to communicate. Like, you know, we were just talking earlier, Francesca and I, like, one of the most important things leaders need to do is show vulnerability and show that they need help with this and not shut down and be crazy nervous about every single interaction they have. We're all human. And I said, so that would be the other piece of advice. Please enter, you know, when you go back into the world, be human. Like, be, you know, compassionate about not everybody has had the incredible experience that you have had. You're way ahead of a lot of people out there, and just share that compassion and lead with your heart, and know that you can support everybody moving forward.
I don't think Amelia's here. I keep stealing this. One of our Center for Equity, Gender, and Leadership student board members, who's also in my class, constructed this. We talk about this a lot. If somebody told me I had to come and speak in Ruby code, you'd never hear me speak, ever. So me going in and telling people they need to speak equity fluent leadership talk, it feels very similar. It's a new language, and we aren't forgiving right now. And so Amelia in our class calls it a maze of grace. And I think it's just a really beautiful construct of how we've got to give more grace, because so many people are feeling silenced because they're scared to death of messing up. So I really like that. Vulnerability. Can you talk about a time where you were vulnerable and maybe didn't plan on being vulnerable?
Every day.
Yeah. Because vulnerability usually comes out accidentally first, and then you're like, oh, that wasn't so bad. Because women are pretty much, I believe, I have experienced that women are taught that to be strong, you can't be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Like they decouple the two.
Yeah. I think, I mean, I'm not kidding, it is every day. You never know. You've got 1,000 interactions that are happening with people, individuals, groups, and sometimes you say something that might not have come off the right way, and everybody sort of responds to things differently. So that's a fact. I mean, some of the big things, you know, I share. I think the time when I felt the most vulnerable was when I ended up choosing a job, a career, made a move that I thought was for the right reasons, and I didn't spend enough time doing due diligence on a lot that was going on with that company. And I made some assumptions because I trusted some people that were there, and I didn't do enough of my own due diligence. And so when I ended up being at that company, it was a tiny company, and I was used to working for much larger companies. I arrived and realized, oh my gosh, the ethics and the values are really not aligned with mine at all. And I thought I had done enough diligence on that, and I hadn't. And so you kind of beat yourself up. You're like, how could I possibly have missed this? Like, I moved my whole family down here for this. And I felt incredibly just like insecure over the whole thing, because you walk into something, a situation, and when, to me, values are really important, really, really important. And because I can throw my whole energy towards something that I'm really aligned with. And when you're out of sync with that, it's rough. It's really rough, because you just never feel like you ever can do anything right. It's hard. You're always in conflict with that. So that, I would just encourage you all to, whatever you decide to do, make sure that the work that you choose is very aligned with your personal values. And think about the energy that you want to put into something, because that's when you do your best work. You know, you want to be very fulfilled. And so values and energy must be closely aligned in your professional life and your personal life, in my opinion. And I see it. I see it happen. I see people do much, much better work. And I think it leads to much more productive lives as well.
Could you say what are one or two of your core values?
Yeah, I mean, I care about, well, I'll just talk about business, since we're in a business school here. You know, I choose to run a company And the way I run this company is led that I believe that it is the responsibility of business to be used as a force for good. That's fundamental to me. And so whether it, as businesses grow, they create a footprint in the world. And that footprint, there is no conflict. There should not be any conflict between driving a very profitable business. I love business. I love making money, but I also love making a positive impact in the world, socially and environmentally. So that fundamentally to me is how businesses should be run. They should be run as a force for good. And the larger your business becomes, the bigger footprint and impact you have. And that you need to take that very seriously and very responsibly. So we became a B Corp a year ago. You probably all know what B Corp is in this room. Yeah. Usually I ask that. Nobody knows what it is, but
you're at Berkeley.
So raise your hand. Does everybody know what a B Corp is here? Yeah, okay. And that is something I'm super proud of, because it is a certification that is, basically very rigorous, that certifies you that you are doing what you're saying. So to me, it's about ethics and deciding that you're going to give back to the world in whatever way you choose. So for us, it's, women's empowerment is very important to me personally. I run a brand whose mission is all about women's empowerment through leading a healthy, active lifestyle. That is fundamentally who I am as a person, and it is fully aligned with the business that I run. And we also have a very aggressive sustainability goals, because we believe that that is the right thing to do. And we also run programs, all over the world that help our factory workers that are also female, largely female, improve their lives. So that's just an example of finding work that aligns with your personal values and feeling that you're very connected to them.
And you talk a lot about, or I hear you talk a lot in our personal conversations too, about energy.
Yes.
What brings you energy, and what do you do when you are energy depleted?
Yeah, I think you have to choose projects, careers, jobs, assignments that you're excited about and that you're passionate about, that you can throw yourself into. So it could be, a company that, wants to move some big social mission forward, and you're passionate about that. That brings you energy. For me, again, I need to be passionate about the products that I'm working with. I have to believe in the products that I'm selling. Because I have to sell something that I truly can back. Like, I'm not gonna, just not sell something to a customer that I couldn't personally be proud of. Mm-hmm. So that's important. Choose what whatever it is that whoever your client is, your customer is, that you really believe in that you want to make that the very best thing. And whatever other pieces of that go along with it, whether it's the foundation work, the philanthropic work, the social impact, the environmental impact that comes together with that. Choose something you're personally passionate about and give it 1,000%, because you will make such a huge impact in your company and in your personal life. When I have chosen, I rarely do I choose things that maybe I thought it would bring me energy and it didn't. You know instantly when it depletes you. It's sort of like, that feeling where you can't stand going to that meeting, or you can't stay, like, it. And I have to be so conscious. And sometimes you don't get to choose everything. I'm looking at Emily over there. She's like grinning at me. Sometimes you have to go to those, meetings that kind of suck, and you're going to walk into something that's going to be super tense and energy depleting. But what I try to do is I always try to center myself before I go into that and think about, what kind of energy can I bring to this situation that is going to be really challenging and really tense? And how can I try to imagine and manifest a better energy that I can bring to it? And so can I try to turn that energy into that situation? Mm-hmm. And that really, I've been doing that in the last year much more consciously. And I think it's helped. Sometimes I'm good at it, sometimes I'm not good at it, but I'm really practicing that. It's especially hard right now. I think, we're going through this major split in the company.
Why don't you tell people about that? It's confusing.
It's tense. So we're splitting our company into two, basically. Old Navy is going to spin off on its own, and that's about half of the company's revenue. And then the other brands will form a new company, to be named. Athleta will be part of that new company, obviously. And so we're trying to figure out right now, it's never been done before. Gap has acquired companies, started companies, we've shut down companies, but we have never split. So we have consultants working with us. We have teams that have been, people that have been pulled out of their jobs. My CFO was pulled out of his role at Athleta to lead the split. And it's tense because it's, you know, if you're in one of the brands, you sort of know where you're going to go. If you're not in one of the brands, you don't know where you're going right now. So you've got 2/3 of the company, it's pretty straightforward, and 1/3 of the company where it's not. And so then people don't know which side they're going to end up. Will they have a job? You know, who knows? Some things will be restructured, some won't. So you can imagine how the levels of anxiety that has created around the business. And so, you know, there's those moments where you're going into those tense meetings where we're trying to figure out new operating models for both. How to both get set up so they can both be set up for day one with success in a way that is the right way for the future. That's a tremendous amount of change for any company to go through. And so there's a lot of, you know, some people are very comfortable with change. I'm comfortable with change, but a lot of people aren't. Most people are not wired to navigate change well. So you have to help kind of calm people down and be very open and transparent with communication.
That's big when you think about it being started by the Fishers.
It's huge.
I can't imagine.
Even just even that, like Bob Fisher has to decide which board he's going to be chair of. Wow. Tough job. But there is a family dynamic. It's very, very personal for them.
Right.
You know. Anyway, it'll all be good. But it's talk about, you know, navigating the unknown. Some people are very comfortable with it. Some people aren't. So I'm trying to really consciously bring that as good energy as I can and try to avoid anything where there's like this negative spin happening. That's another thing I would say. I always tell everybody, avoid the water cooler. It does nothing but deplete you. Seriously. Like, that's a big deal. Like, let's just talk about it, right? Energy, you want to talk about energy? Do you know how much time is wasted on stuff that you cannot control? You can bitch all you want. There's nothing you can do about it. And then you think about it. It's kind of like when you get sucked into the social media feed. You're like, I just spent 3 hours, you know, getting sucked in. It's sort of the same, right? Yeah. Where
you do that?
Sometimes I do. Yeah. Sometimes I do. I try to be, you know, no, not 3 hours in a row, but you can. Not that bad. I'm not a millennial, for God's sake. No, but no. Sometimes it could literally add up. Yeah. Pinterest is like my enemy right now. My daughter's getting married, and it's like, oh God, so many ideas. But you do. I mean, you have to just sort of say, don't spend time on the crap that doesn't serve you. Yeah, you've got to vent a little bit vent, fine. But don't, like, stir things up and get caught up in all the, oh my God, can you believe so-and-so's doing it? Just, like, don't. It does not, if there's no value in that. Focus on the change that you want to be and you want to make in the company and how you can be a leader and impact that change. Every single person at every single level of the company can be a leader. And we need that. We need more of that. So I think it's really about choosing what you want to impact and really being committed to that and putting that positive energy against that.
I'm really stuck on the thought that social media is the new water cooler. Ugh. It is. It's true. For me, the water cooler was the playground, dropping my kids off in the morning. And the judgment I got because I was, how can you leave your kids and go to work or get on an airplane? So as soon as they were able...
I got a lot of that from my friends too.
Yeah, it was just, as soon as they were able, they just tucked and rolled. I slowed down and they just jumped out. That was my water cooler.
Like, I gotta get out of here. I was the one that was like, oh, Nancy, you'll never make it to the X, Y, or Z thing at school. Yeah. You're busy, you know. Yeah. And that's hard too, by the way. I mean, there is sort of that dynamic that can happen where you're sort of, you know, there can be people that are, you know, judge how you think that you're not a great parent because you've chose to have a career. And I will tell you, my daughter almost came today. I wish she had, but she couldn't make it. But I have 4 kids, 2 daughters, 2 sons. I ask my kids this a lot, and they're all adults now. My youngest is graduating from Colorado College in 2 weeks. I always say, do you ever resent me working the way I did and having a big career and not having all that time with you that some of your other friends had? And every single one, and they're not bullshitting me. They're seriously like, no, Mom, you are so happy doing what you're doing. When you were with us, you were with us. And you're a role model for us. You're a role model for us, and we've never, ever resented it. And so I think that's really important. I think because some of you will have those decisions that you will have to make. And, I think it's always hard sometimes when you see incredibly well-educated people that feel like they have to make one choice or the other, so.
Last question from me, and then I'm going to open it up to the audience. Talk about a painful leadership experience or lesson, or it could just be a painful lesson. It could be a mom, wife, leader, or all 3.
Painful lesson.
Just any, yeah. People always learn from other people's pain because we like to know other people are in pain along with us.
Okay. Okay, here's the painful lesson. So my husband said, if I go listen to this talk, you're not going to call me out or anything. Like, see that guy over there? Like, he made it possible. So painful lesson was honestly, so my husband he's amazing. I mean, he made the decision to step back from a very, very successful career. So we had 2 nannies at the time. We were both traveling all the time. We're like, 2 nannies, it's like too much with 4 kids. One of us has to create more flexibility. So he made the decision to start his own business and have more flexibility with the kids. And this was in 2001-ish. So one of the things that I would say is it was really hard for us at first because I think, for many people, your identities are sort of wrapped up a little bit in a lot of things, including what you do. And it was so abrupt for the family to go through that type of change. And it was hard at first to remind myself that I had to show appreciation for all of those things. You just forget, right? There are a lot of little things that have to get done through the day that are like just little mundane jobs that somebody has to do. And I think, a painful lesson was, I remember, a conversation years ago, like one day we sort of reached that point. It's like, listen, you're the one that goes to work, and every day, you get to be told how great you are by it's like a report card, right? You get a raise, you get promoted, blah, blah, blah. He goes, I'm the one, dealing with all the shit at home, basically. And it's like, it's that reminder of appreciating small things that are actually really big things. And so the painful reminder is never, ever, ever forget that there are people that do a lot of small things that add up to very big things to help you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Oh,
He's here.
Hi.
That's my husband. He just showed up.
That even makes me cry. You're not my husband. That's beautiful.
You devil, you. He's like, no, I can't make it. I'm too busy.
Oh, I love that. Good on you. Getting one over on Nancy is good. It's good.
Were you here when I told him we got married? When did you walk in? I didn't even notice. Okay.
We just heard the
That was
story
a
of your
surprise.
entire marriage.
So glad I wasn't here.
Anyway, so there you go.
That was beautiful. Perfect segue. Who has questions for Nancy? Come, the mics are on either side, and just maybe give us your name and who you are in relationship to this world. But really short.
Okay. Hi, I'm Christina, and I'm a student here at Haas. I'm graduating in a couple weeks here. I actually did research with Kellie here. on gender equity and the pay gap. And one of my questions is that from the research that Laura Cray did, we found that women from Haas are making 56 cents on the dollar to men at Haas 10 years out. And a lot of it has to do with span of control and like the levels they reach and things like that. And so you were talking about, you know, being the change that you want to see. So I was wondering if you could talk about what you personally are doing to help more women rise to levels that you are, because I think I'm seeing a lot of changes at the bottom, but not at the top, and it's not happening very fast.
Yeah, so you know through Kellie's study that we're pretty unusual at Gap. And so we've always had equal pay and equal opportunity. So I'm super excited that through this split, for the first time, we will have a female public company CEO. So that's never happened before.
She's only the second.
She's the
second woman of color.
Yes, and so that's new.
Yeah.
But there, people, you know, there has been incredible equity across all levels, always, and pay. So, you know, what I do is it's important you have to keep developing people, you know, and we've always believed it's not, you know, we look at it as a talent issue. It's just a talent issue. If you want the best talent, you have to make sure that you are motivating them, you are providing opportunities for people to grow, you are championing people. You know, sometimes people don't see that that person is the best talent because they don't work with them every day. Sometimes people are very introverted, and so they're not the loudest voice in the room. They're not the one that does the perfect presentation. And so you have to be, you know, you have to champion them as well. And so providing opportunities, giving people stretch assignments, making sure that you're their champion, and also being really, like, you got to challenge them. I mean, I challenge a lot of people that I feel like are not living up to their potential. And that's okay too, and being very, very direct and just saying, look, you know, you can do better. Or what somebody did for me a long time ago is sometimes people don't even know their own potential. I didn't wake up when I was going to Berkeley here saying, I'm going to be a CEO of a company one day. That wasn't what I was thinking about at the time. I actually thought I was going to be an architect when I was going to school here. And so I think you have to show people sometimes the potential that they might not see in themselves. And I do that a lot with people. And then you have to be realistic. If you want to achieve that, then you have to be willing to do this to get there. So encouraging people to take on very challenging assignments where they can grow.
Thank you.
More questions? Mika. Let's see, it's a race. Who gets there? You win.
My name is Chandler. I'm a first year here at Haas, and I'm also involved with the Gender Equity Initiative here. And so I'd like to ask a question on the other side of that. You talked about how to empower people within the workplace. And I'd love to hear more about how you feel empowered outside of the workplace. I understand this may be a little more awkward now, but we can do earmuffs, whatever you're comfortable with.
We've known each other for a long time.
But how do you build that sort of supportive partnership? Understanding, how do you make the decision of who steps up, who steps back, or if you both want to step up in your careers?
Yeah.
A lot of us are quite ambitious, and we're attracted to people who are quite ambitious. And how do you make that decision, and how do you support each other in whatever your partner chooses?
Yeah, so I think, it is a partnership. And so, I would say don't over-plan your life to the last possible degree of everything. You have to let your life unfold. It doesn't always, like I said, when I was here, I thought I was going to be an architect. If you try to plan things so perfectly through every, level of experience, you're going to forget that things will just unfold. And so he just left. I wonder if he was
Maybe your daughter texted him because he saw he ran.
Oh. She's probably like, answer this. I don't want to hear how she answers this. But like for us, we were both senior vice presidents at the time when my husband Bart decided it was kind of crazy. We were literally two nannies were raising our kids more than we were, and that wasn't what we wanted ultimately. But we didn't know that was going to happen until it happened, and then you wake up one day and you realize, is this what we want? So I would say find somebody that you want to be in, like a partner in life. That's the most important thing. Ambition is formed in many different ways. So think about that. Like, if you enter into a relationship where you're going to have a family, you're in it together. This is the person hopefully you're going to spend the rest of your life with. I've known my husband since I was 17 years old, and we've been together a long time. And you go through a lot, and some things are great and some things aren't, and you have to work through it, and you have to be super honest with each other, and it's not always easy, but it's fun. But values are really important. The most important thing is values. Connect with people who share your values. It's the same as like choosing a job, right? It's like values, values, values. Because you can't, when you're not in sync on values, good luck. Especially raising children. Oh my God, can you imagine? It's like, I think that's probably why a lot of people split up, because they're so confused over how to raise their children. So anyway, did that answer your question?
I think it's just like in choosing partnerships. And
if it didn't,
it's really helpful. Like, the thing I'm most wondering about is how, other than having a strong base of communication, how did you make that decision during like a present value analysis of what your salaries would be, or like how did you?
All right, people. You are thinkers. Okay, we're just talking about, like, I just went through this leadership immersion program that I'm super excited about balancing the warrior, the thinker, the lover, and the dreamer. A lot of us in this room are naturally wired to be warriors and thinkers. You are highly analytical, problem-solving people, which is probably why you wanted to get an MBA. Great, save the world. Me too, by the way, but I don't have an MBA. But what you must do, you've got to listen to your heart and your gut. Like, intuition is really important in life. So I think you we didn't go pro-con a value sheet. We knew. Like, you have to know what's in your heart and what you feels right, and you have to know what's right for your situation. Family, some of you will choose not to have families. You'll have other, whatever it is. Listen to your heart and listen to, there's a lot of study on the microbiome. There are brain cells in your microbiome, which is why everybody says trust your gut, because there's actually brain cells down here. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
So you got it. Just listen to your heart, and you'll know. It's true. And you also have to use your heart and lead with your heart. And that's part of being a compassionate human being versus an overly analytical, overly rational person. It also helps spur a lot of imagination and vision. It's really important using your gut and your heart.
Nice, good question.
Great question.
I was just sitting back thinking I'm screwed because I'm a lover and a dreamer. So, but
no, you're a thinker too. Yeah. I would say you're very much a thinker. Hence you were apologizing all the time.
Sorry, I did that. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Nika. I'm a second-year MBA, and I took Kellie's class last semester, and it actually opened my eyes on a lot of different things, having spent most of my early career in male-dominated environments. So it was very clear from your talk how you think that the company is responsible for empowering women within the company. And I was wondering, what do you think that business in general and different companies can do for increasing the diversity in the role models in the society as a whole, and not only inside the company? I don't know if that's clear.
Can just go a little deeper on that question.
Yeah, so what I think is that, at least when I grew up, like, most of the role models I used to look up to were men. Yeah. Or were like, oh, I want to do that. And in every single position, there were only men. Yeah. So I believe there's like a lack of diversity in the role models that some kids look up to. Yeah. Not only gender diversity, but also race, disability, etc. And I was wondering if you think that companies can also have a say in that, and how can they help change the public opinion, or whatever you call that, and that kids grow with different, more diversity in the role models.
I mean, again, from my own experience, I was fortunate at Gap that was never the issue, as I said.
But I think if I speak more broadly about other companies and what we're working on, with the center, is you have to be very consciously aware of it. I mean, it starts with the top. The board and the CEO better damn well care about it. Otherwise, it will never happen, right? It has to be. And so, we now have legislation where it's required to have one woman on a board. Oh my God, one woman on a board.
We're supposed to cheer that on.
Right. So.
And people are angry about it. Like, seriously, one woman, you're angry?
Yeah. Well, someday it'll be 50%. So, but it starts with it has to be something that the board and the CEO value. And I'm sure when you're all, those of you that are interviewing for jobs, look for that. Make sure that you understand that in the companies that you're choosing to go work for, that you see that there. Because that's part of values. If a company doesn't value that, it's very hard culturally to make that change, because you're just kind of fighting all the way.
I don't know if it's exactly Nika, but their models that they use, just from a perspective of inspiring role models, are phenomenal, because all different shapes and sizes and...
If that's different, that's within our company.
Right? Yeah. Like, I was thinking, maybe what is the different tools that a company can use, like marketing may be one to change how other people perceive.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Sorry, I thought you meant literally changing the complexion of the organizational leadership. Okay, so I'll give you... Thank you for
I was going to whisper
navigating that question for me. Okay, so let me give you an example. So the company that I run, Athleta, I felt very strongly, as did my team, that one of the things that we were going to do differently when we took over the opportunity 6 years ago was we really believed that media was creating terrible images for women that was causing all kinds of psychological insecurity around body image and age primarily. The fashion media portrays women generally as a size 2 and about a 24-year-old. And we're like, that's bull. No, that's not. So you're basically saying that once you turn 25, you're irrelevant. And so we were saying, we're going to use, this is an example of using your business as a force for good. That as our business grew, as the Athleta platform grew, we were going to use that to show that there was power in diversity and inclusion of body type, of age, and of skin color and background. We are going to have our first transgender woman in our catalog this fall. So, and that takes guts to do, but we're doing it. And it's the right thing to do. And so we get here's the cool thing about that, is that the customer gives us affirmation every day that it is the right thing to do. Actually, even more so than everything we're doing for the environment. I get incredibly positive letters and emails from women, mothers, teachers, and coaches saying, thank you for showing and portraying real women, and showing that strength and beauty and power and confidence comes in so many different ways and types. So that's an example of showing, strength and leadership. And so I think it's back to, choose brands and businesses and where you feel like there's that cultural alignment for you, that you see it. And then when you step into the roles that you're going to step into, back to how do you all use your role and your voice as a leader in really creating that platform for what you believe in. And here's another cool thing is, when you go in and you're framing up, in my role as a CEO, part of what I do, obviously, is to frame vision and strategy. And when you're super clear on what you're doing and that North Star that you're trying to get to, then you have this power of the team coming up with all these ideas. So we knew we wanted to do this in terms of being really powerful, in terms of inclusivity, and also setting very aggressive environmental goals. My team was the one that had the ideas. on how to go about and doing that. And they actually, so everybody just sort of is so, it's sort of like this energy force where everybody is so aligned to that North Star that these incredible ideas start to form from everywhere on what to do and how to amplify that. And so that is like when you really get in the zone. And that is, like, our business literally started to take off when everybody was sort of really moving in that direction and we were starting to break through.
Yeah, I've never ever heard the incredible force of employee power around calculating net present value. It's really interesting. It's always around some sort of a positive North Star.
It is, and that's what we're trying to prove with B Corp, is that profit, people, and planet, you know, they're not in conflict. And the thing that is super important is, you know this, because, you know, you're in this largely in this age group where this matters more and more to people who want to join companies that care and act this way. And customers care about this. Customers want to vote and support businesses and brands that think this way, that are in line with their values. And we're starting to see the investment community, you know, move slowly in this direction as well. And they have to pay attention, because when customers cross over, you know, you're foolish not to pay attention.
I want to be conscious that we're at time. You two get to come to the front and be the first to ask her a personal question, since you're at the microphone. I want to, before I thank Nancy, I really want to make an ask. When she talks about customers rewarding you, I think it's so incumbent on us to reward companies like this and to tell everybody that we know to reward companies like this. So Athleta, on sale Athleta, old inventory Athleta, new store on 4th Street. I just think we have so much power in this room that we don't use as customers to reinforce what Athleta is doing. And under the leadership of Nancy Green, I want to take this moment to thank her for being here. And thank you for all that you do. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so you two get to come up and ask Nancy questions. Everyone else, thank you. It's our last speaker of the year, and so you'll see us back in the fall. Great. They were waiting.